Raineri, from Joel Brater, and that one really goes to Gil. What is the earliest date that Healios could provide, or receive, I should say, provisional approval?
Yeah, so Joel, thanks for offering up the question. I guess my response to that is that I would refer you back to Hardy's presentation where he laid out the timeline for when Healios intends to complete enrollment in the trial, and then it's a 90-day endpoint, but it'll take several months, basically, one, to go from the last patient enrolled in the trial to completing the assessment of that subject, to then going through the process of analyzing the data, verifying the data, making sure that it's properly assessed and evaluated. The nice thing is that as Hardy talked about, Healios obtained Sakigake designation, which is kind of like fast track designation here in the United States. And that enables a couple of things. One, it expedites the review and approval process. So PMDA basically would do that review within a 6-month time frame, which is faster than the norm. Normally it takes about 10 months to a year. And the other thing that is relevant is that you can actually take advantage of something called rolling submission. So what that means is you can actually prepare modules for your approval package ahead of time and submit those for consideration, kind of expediting the overall process, as opposed to trying to finalize your entire package, submitting it, and then if there's a problem, then you have to go back and redo the whole package. So again, I would refer you back to the timeline in terms of what Hardy spoke to earlier, and refer to that.
And a follow-on question here from Sam McHale, Gil. What is the status of the exclusive right of first negotiation granted by Athersys-Healios with respect to an option for an exclusive license in China to develop and commercialize multi-stem? Is there any update you can provide on the partnership as it relates to China clauses, or is that at this point public?
Yeah, we can't really comment on that, neither Hardy nor I at the moment. We did submit a filing to the SEC a few days ago where we had extended that out for a little bit while we continue to do some work. But again, we can't really comment on that at the moment, and I hope people understand that.
Okay, a question for Hardy, and this comes from Dale St. Peter.
Yes.
Do you have any expectation as far as the timeline to enroll the last patient? I don't know if that was on your timeline slide, but maybe you could reiterate when you expect to enroll the final patient in the TREASURE study.
Yeah. So as I said, we expect we're going to finish up the study in 2 years. We started last November, so we're hoping to finish up the last patient in later within next year. That's the time frame we are looking into right now. So that would be based on the fact that the drug product should be delivered on time, and there are several other conditions which should be met. But so far we are in good shape.
Okay, and just a follow-on question from Dale St. Peter on that, Hardy. Will there be 90-day data reported at some point during or prior to the 1-year data being available? Any estimate on how that might play out if you're...
I don't, at this moment, I don't think we're going to disclose the information before we enroll all the patients. But after we enroll this last patient, we will be summarizing data. As you know, it's a double-blinded, so we cannot comment on how the data looks like so far.
Right.
Yeah, Hardy, I think sorry for interjecting, I think he was referring to, will there be an announcement after the 90-day data after all the subjects are enrolled and those patients are assessed? And the answer to that, yeah.
That'll be yes.
Go ahead.
That'll be yes. That'll be yes. So after we have all the enrollment of the patients and then we analyze 90 days data, yes, we will be publishing or announcing the data at some point. We haven't decided how to do it, whether we're going to do it at some academic meeting or not. That's the subject of discussion still. But yes, we will disclose the information.
Okay, thank you. And now, I guess a question for I suppose all three might want to comment on this, but the question is from Ron Rabin, how far along are Athersys or Healios in creating large quantities of multistem for commercial scale production on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, I'll kind of comment on that first. So as Kim mentioned and as Hardy alluded to in his presentation, we've been actively involved in the tech transfer process, so transferring the process that's utilized to produce clinical material currently to the Nikon team and the Nikon facility in Japan. Certainly we have a plan in place about how we want to approach the commercialization aspect of this, but we're not currently engaged in producing commercial quantities of multistem for a couple of different reasons. One, it would be a little bit premature and wouldn't be appropriate for us to do that, but also because we just don't have that capability in place. So we're working towards establishing the framework for that goal, because obviously we realize that upon obtaining approval, we're going to want to have that capability in place when it's appropriate to have it in place. But again, I don't want people to have the illusion that we're stockpiling massive amounts of multistem right now, because we don't have the capability to do that right now. And frankly, it wouldn't really be financially prudent for us to be doing that at this early stage.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments from Kim or Hardy on that one? Okay.
Yes.
Just to the next question.
Sorry. At the same token, the timeline for approval should be within 2 years, right, at the moment. So we're preparing for them. As soon as we get the data, we should be ready for launching the product. And then, as you can see from public information, we have been able to deliver the product for at least 62,000 patients per year in Japan. So that's the real challenge we have to face and we have to solve.
Okay, thank you. A question on the manufacturing side for you, Kim, from Raineri. I didn't see any 3D bioreactors in the Nikon presentation. Is that part of a tech transfer or next generation plan at this point?
Thanks, Bill. I guess I would refer that question back to Gil and to his comments that he just made about preparation for commercial quantities.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to comment on that. Obviously, the 3D bioreactor platform is a core part of our commercialization strategy, and I can't, unfortunately, really comment on the status of that with Nikon right now. Kim didn't refer to it in the presentation, and I think at this point in time, it's really kind of premature for us to provide any specific commentary on that. But it is a core part of the strategy.
Okay. A question then with regard to the USARDS report. This is from Dale St. Peter. When do you expect the USARDS report to be communicated?
Yeah, so as we announced on our last earnings call, we recently completed enrollment for that trial, and we're engaged in the follow-up and subsequent activities from that. So sometime in the early part of next year, we expect to have the initial results from that trial. We haven't given a precise date, but we will be providing further information and an update on that as circumstances warrant.
Okay. I have a question here from Nicholas Heath, and this one's related more to site management of multistem. Again, it says, assuming approval for stroke in the U.S. and Japan, will cryopreservation freezers be necessary at each clinical site that would administer multistem? If so, what is your plan to achieve smooth distribution in addition to multistem to these clinical locations? Sorry.
Yeah, so
did you hear that one, Gil?
Yeah, no, I got it. Yeah, so cryopreservation capabilities at the clinical sites is critical. And we've done a lot of work to demonstrate that when the cells are properly cryopreserved, that they actually have a long shelf life. And we've done a lot to kind of simplify the processes and the procedures. We actually do have a plan or how to ensure that capability at the clinical sites that we would be providing commercial material to post-approval, but we haven't really laid out exactly how we intend to approach that. But I can say it's a core part of our strategy, and we consider it to be an important element of the overall delivery of multi-stem to clinical sites and patients.
Very good. Thank you. Question for Hardy. Do you have any suggestions, now that you've got this experience with partnering with Athersys, do you have any suggestions on how an R&D organization looking to try and approach Japan, how they could find the right Japan partner? What suggestions would you have on how to approach that?
Yeah. So first suggestion is, I think you definitely need a Japanese partner for sure. And secondly, you want to find a partner who has already gone through this kind of experience. So today there are probably several companies who's running trials using cell therapy. I recommend to go after with those companies. And thirdly, the manufacturing issue is a big issue. As Kim laid out, there were several challenges to fill the gap between U.S. and Japanese regulation. And I recommend to engage companies like Nikon Cell Innovation or others. Frankly speaking, Nikon Cell Innovation has the best experience in the field in Japan. But again, so we've got to have a manufacturing capability, not only about the manufacturing itself, but also for the regulatory issues. So those are the key elements I think you have to fulfill to do business in Japan.
Okay. And just to segue that to you, Kim, you've talked about, in that process, in your presentation, you talked about translation being an issue that you've constantly been dealing with through the partnership. Can you share any thoughts on what resources a company should consider to address that, and what timeline considerations there might be with regard to translation?
So from a resource perspective, it's definitely helpful to have, some Japanese speakers on staff for those interactions in Japan. And for companies without native speakers, it's going to be recommended to have to have translators for those interactions with PMDA. For the translation component, it depends on the size and scope of the tech transfer. But at least, you need to give yourself at least a few months, 2 to 4 months for some of the translation activities. But that can be done in parallel with some of the tech transfer. So it's not materially additive to the overall tech transfer time frame, but definitely needs to be worked in and needs to be part of the overall plan. At NCLI, we have bilingual staff, and so communication with English-speaking companies, like Athersys, has been fairly smooth. So it's not an absolute requirement, but definitely a recommendation to have those capabilities if you really want to be in Japan and interacting with PMDA.
And just to segue that, to segue that, is that me?
You receiving a fax bill? Bill, this is Kim. I'm still here.
Bill, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. How are you?
Just one more. Megan, you still there? Yeah.
Bill said to go to the phone questions.
Yep. Yeah, that's fine.
Certainly. If you would like to ask a question, please dial the number on the screen, input the conference ID on screen, and press *1. Again, if you'd like to ask a question, please dial the number on screen, input the conference ID on the screen, and press *1. We'll pause for just a moment to compile the Q&A roster.
One thing while we're waiting for people to queue up on the Q&A roster, I would just advise and request that people confine their questions to the subject matter of the webinar tonight. I realize that there are a number of people that may have questions about other topics, either related to us or related to Helios or related to even activities at Nikon. But really, the purpose of the webinar is to really provide guidance and information as it relates to Japan and all the related activities and initiatives. So I would respectfully request that people kind of focus their questions and concentrate on that. And if people have other questions and they feel that they need to reach out to Helios or Athersys or Nikon separately, then please feel free to do so.
Okay, thank you. I guess maybe if it's okay to ask one more question of you, Gil, in a follow-on to Kim's response on translation. As the incoming company, any comment you could add to what Kim said about how Athersys has managed that?
Well, I think Kim hit on a lot of really central issues. One, I think the working dynamic between all three companies has been excellent. And part of this is because there was good personal chemistry between the principals and people had an opportunity to get to know one another. But I think that a real reflection of undertaking a complex process like this is how you deal with the challenges and the unexpected little hurdles or things that come up along the way. And I think we've all dealt with that in a very collaborative and collegial way. And I think Hardy and I and Kim are all pretty proud of that because it reflects the genuine commitment between the three parties in the organizations. I mean, honestly, there was a longer list of things that Kim could have mentioned in terms of things that come up or things that people need to think about when they're undertaking this process. But without going through that, list of the additional things that could be covered, I guess I would just say that I'm actually pretty pleased with the way the process has unfolded, and I think our team is pleased with the way the process has unfolded and how the challenges and various issues have been dealt with along the way.
Excellent. An open question to all three speakers while we wait for anything coming in. If you're a company outside of Japan or an organization outside of Japan and you want to approach Japan, there's a lot of companies and a lot of resources in Japan. It's a major pharmaceutical market. What avenues are there to help you, identify companies and connect with companies? Any recommendations? Hardy, Kim, or Gil?
Should I make a comment then? Okay. So he just came to know Athersys actually through Lonza, and sometimes manufacturer has most of the important information, I believe. And in our case, they became kind of facilitator to connect between the companies. And that was quite helpful, and then a meaningful meeting we had back then. And I believe first company who wants to get into Japanese market needs to sort out the manufacturing issue in order to start the clinical trial. And it's a kind of natural flow to talk to a CMO like Nikon and others. And if they can connect to potential partners, I think that's one of the smooth way to do it, I believe. And then by doing so, most of the due diligence is also done by a CMO already. What do you think, Kim?
Yeah, Hardy, I appreciate that endorsement. But That's definitely one way. That's one avenue in. There are companies in Japan as well that do help to facilitate partnerships. So, I would certainly recommend, and I'll put an endorsement out to FIRM, which is the kind of Japanese group that is the kind of organizer for regenerative medicine in Japan, the organization. And so that's definitely one good avenue to explore, and they can help to facilitate connections as well into Japan.
Yeah, I would just echo that, Kim. So for those people that are more familiar with the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine, or ARM, FIRM is kind of the corresponding organizational equivalent for, and is actually a kind of a sister organization to ARM, representing the broader regenerative medicine community in an RMAT community in Japan. And that's an excellent place to start. Just to kind of follow up on Hardy and Kim's comments on overall approach, it really helps to use an experienced intermediary in Japan. And people should also recognize, in particular, whether you're dealing sometimes with other companies, but also with dealing with regulators, is really make sure that you connect with a qualified medical translator that understands what you're talking about and can act as an efficient mediary, basically, in the dialogue between. Now, many people at PMDA speak excellent English, but the reality of it is that some of the more formal meetings, in particular, are conducted in Japanese, and it's important for non-Japanese speaking organizations or individuals to make sure that you, in some cases, have a translator that can act as a go-between on both sides. In other cases, in formal meetings, sometimes it's necessary to actually have two translators, one that's translating in one direction and the other that's translating in the other direction. So I would say that be patient, number one. Be prepared, number two. Work with an experienced intermediary or intermediaries. And just one final thought in terms of what Kim talked about in terms of characterization of ingredients going into the regulatory manufacturing process. I think it's fair to say that PMDA has a more rigorous approach to this than in many other locations in the world, but I actually think that is a benefit to companies and organizations that engage with PMDA, because it really forces you to deepen your understanding of the characterization of the ingredients and the things that are going into your manufacturing process and processes and procedure. So it's, I think, again, it helps organizations become even more prepared for what is eventually going to be coming. And I think that's it's important to understand that.
Thank you, Gil, for that. That was actually a very good summarization, I think, and a good place for us to bring the webinar to close. I just want to thank everyone for registering and attending today. Thank you to Nikon for sponsoring the webinar, and to our speakers, Gil, Hardy, and Kim, for providing their insights and perspectives on partnering in Japan. A webinar evaluation form will be sent to you via email, and following this presentation, please take the opportunity to let us know which topics you'd like to see in the future ISCT webinars, but also remember that completing your evaluation will allow you to access the webinar recording on the ISCT website. So very much appreciate your feedback and helping us to move forward. Again, thank you to our speakers, participants, sponsor, and to ISCT. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.